That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.
Red Knight, Volume 2, The Birds and the B-Listers. I have one of the same complaints. No, I've got both. Both complaints are pretty much the same, one less or so. But one of them is just as much a problem. Which is this is not the standard size of a trade. And that is legitimately pissing me off. Damn it! I know, it's stupid, but when I put it on my shelf, it sticks out slightly from the other trade paperbacks. And it's not okay. It's not okay. The other complaint I have, and this is just more disappointment, is it's in black and white. I really wanted it to be in color. I know how expensive that is. He had to do an Indiegogo campaign last time to make it happen, and I understand that, but damn, it was nice to read in color. And I just don't like black and white comics as much as everyone else in the world, I guess. Though it was kind of neat to see the little dotted shading thing again. I haven't seen that in comics in a while. And to be fair, I don't read indie. I know it's still pretty prevalent over there. And what I do like about this is every issue is its own story, but is like just seeding an arc throughout it. So I think that would really help for the monthly readers that want to do that as an option. So I'll just talk about each issue. The first one, we have two superheroes in town who are like posting on their YouTube channel basically about all the cool superhero things they're doing, but they're really setting up the crimes for themselves to solve or to come to the rescue. And Red Knight wants to try to talk to them and get them to realize that there's a right way to do this and that they're just being selfish about it. But if they were more like him, then they could be allies with him and Martha and yada yada. Again, I think it's too wordy. Look at that paragraph right there. That's a whole paragraph of dialogue just from one character. And then it continues on into two more word balloons. And so just stuff like that, I'd prefer if you could tighten the screws just a little bit, not much. Just find a way to say the same with less. Because I don't think that's impossible. Again, I'm not as big a fan of the art in this, mainly because it's in black and white. So there are some cool, like, I think, do we get a different artist each issue? I think we might. That's definitely a different artist. I think so, at least. I'm pretty sure we got different artists the entire book. No? Guess not. Different styles, then. Seems different to me. So Red Knight goes to talk to the guys, but really they are only interested in themselves, and so it turns into a fight, and he and Martha have to stop them, which was kind of neat. Just cool little action scene there. Martha Brown is a fucking badass, though. And yeah, it was just a cool little story, and then we're left with, excuse me. We're left with, like, the building villain of the book, just seated there, basically. Not a ton. And this is probably going to be the same guy that killed the mob boss from, in just one of the scenes in the last trade, so we'll see where that goes eventually whenever our next trade comes out. And I'm really happy for Manus that he's continuing on with Red Knight. I think it's a great series, and I hope he goes with it for a very long time to come. And then the next one, I just love how comic booky a world this is. Because we go from, like, it's so real, but it's real people in a comic book world, which I really like. So we go from two guys having an argument about a stolen car to, we'll see who's kicking whose ass, beep, and that's just cool. The car turned into a giant robot. And then that's just this whole thing with an evil scientist that that doesn't like that has his own shit going on. I'll get into it. He created a device to go between dimensions, but once he got there, he saw that the characters on the other side of the dimension were evil and wanted to rule Earth, so he came back, and now he's trying to take over the world in order to prepare it for the upcoming invasion, but everyone just thinks he's crazy. But there's this scene I really like with him, where he stabs one of his henchmen with a bunch of nanobots, and the guy dies. And then, here we go, yeah. His henchmen all gather together because of this a little bit later, and decide to to overthrow him and just take his car robots for themselves, because he just straight up murdered one of them without a second thought. And so they just kick his ass and tie him up and leave him. And then they go take the car robots to go rob a bank, and Red Knight and Martha have to stop them, and they get a car robot of their own, and it's just cool. It's just cool. There's a great action scene. I'm not a huge fan of the art in the action scene. It probably would look better if it were colorized. It's just really hard to tell what's going on in some of the panels I found. Without color, it is sometimes difficult to discern what's happening panel to panel. So I found that kind of disappointing. And Todd does something else in this too that I won't get into. It's just a cool character thing for him. And then the final comic book story in here is about a guy who got arrested in a bank robbery. He got arrested as the getaway driver for a bank robbery. The car crashed, and he ended up getting arrested, being the only one arrested. His partners got away, and while in prison, his mother died. His partners threatened to kill his mother should he rat on him, and so he took up magic, because why not? And so now he has the ability to control birds, and I really like that. It's a neat, it's Hitchcock meets superheroes, and that's cool. And they're actually a legitimate threat to Red Knight, even though he's bulletproof. I think that was kind of a neat idea. And it's just this feels like an episode of a television show, honestly. I could see this as an episode of Flash or Arrow or something, just one of their one-offs where there's a villain who's got some kind of weird ability and is causing trouble in the city, and they have to find a clever way to stop him. That's kind of what was going on here, and it was just neat. And I like that Todd shows that he's not just two fists, he's actually kind of got a head on his shoulders, as he comes up with a way to defeat the bad guy here that I thought was just really clever, and I'm just going to let that one be. And he learns, it's a good story. He learns something here. He learns that he should talk to his mom more, basically. Just stuff like that I really like. So those were the three, comic stories. And then we got, just a couple pages basically introducing the Justice League of this universe. But these are just the union of superheroes, and these are all the characters that are in it, and that are the big names of that universe that we don't get to read. Though I would probably, I know you won't do it, but Manos, since I know you're watching, I would totally read an X169672 one shot. I'd pick it up. Sounds like a cool idea to me. And then we have a story called Martha's Choice, and this I did not like. I like the overall tone and the message and everything it does for her character, but I thought it was really, really sloppily written. Okay, it's broken up into three parts. There's prologue, the body, and an epilogue. The prologue and epilogue are in third-person perspective, and the body of the story is in first-person, which isn't a change that's super problematic, but it's still, like, jarring at first when you read it. But then there are just a lot of grammar and spelling issues throughout this that I just... You know, I'm reading comics to read comics, so if I'm going to read prose, I'd like it to be well-written prose. And I'm sorry to say this just isn't. Like, if the story had been great, I probably wouldn't have cared about all the errors, but the story is just okay, and I found a lot of these, like, language grammar errors really, really distracting. I'll see if I can find one real quick. Of course I say that and I can't find one easily, but just they're there. To be fair, you're not reading this for this one story. You're not buying this for this one story. But I was just disappointed that it was written the way it was. Just some more oversight, being a little more careful with the editing and just paying attention to perspective and the grammar of it would have worked. That was one thing I did notice. I noticed a couple, like the wrong tense of the word was used. And I'm not typically a grammar Nazi or anything, but I found that kind of distracting. Particularly if you're going to do prose in a comic book, it should be really good prose.
That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.